Welcome to the Bhagavatam. Today we have, on this episode of the Ancient Wisdom podcast, we have a very interesting topic, and that is about defying death. You see, nobody wants to die. We don't even want to talk about death. We wish people happy birthday every year, and we mourn when people die. Even when our pets die, we mourn. We grieve desperately, hopelessly. We grieve as if we've lost everything in the world. And the truth is, so far and so removed from the experience we're having. We've been brought up in a world which celebrates youth and locks away old people or, in old age homes. We fear death. We are in denial of death. And we've dedicated enormous scientific efforts to find solutions to death. But what if death was an illusion? What if no one ever dies? When we understand that we're not the body, but our true self is immortal, eternal, and indestructible, that we are energy, that we are the soul, that we are consciousness, that we are the living force that inhabits the body for a period of time and then leaves, then that changes everything. When someone dies, their body is still in front of us. Why then do we mourn their loss? Why do we bury or burn their body if all we ever knew of them was their body? Think about it really rationally, carefully. When you meet someone, what are you meeting? Are you meeting their soul or are you meeting their body? You're meeting their body. You judge them based on how they look, how they talk, how they smile, how old or young they are, how beautiful or handsome they are. We judge everything based on that appearance. And yet, I'm saying to you, we're not the body. We're not our hand, we're not our head, we're not our wrinkles, we're not our age, we're not our fat or our thin forms. We are none of that. We're not even our mind. We're not even our thoughts. We're not even our story. Now peel all those layers away and what remains? And that's what we're here to find out. What is that indestructible life force that lies within all of us, that is no different in you and in me or in anyone else? What is that? That's what we've been seeking all our life. When we were seeking happiness, we were seeking that life force. When we were seeking peace, we were seeking that. When we were seeking love, we were seeking that. Whatever we've been seeking in this life, in this world, was ourself and nothing else. Because we were looking outside, because we thought what we're seeking is outside, we kept coming up with various things to distract ourselves, to try and think, maybe this is it, maybe that is it, maybe the other is it. So what does it mean to really be alive? If I am not the body, so far, everything I've been doing has been to try to please this body, to give it nice food, nice clothes, a nice house. But if I'm not the body, then why am I spending all this energy on something which I'm not? Why not care for and to find out and then care for that which I am? Why not find out what the soul needs, what the soul wants, what the soul desires, and what would make it come alive? So therefore, what does it mean to be alive? And if you've understood that, then what does it mean to really die? Does the sun die when it sets? Or does it just disappear from your sight? What really is death? We're going to discuss this and so much more in this episode of the Bhagavatam. Join us as we explore these topics through the ancient wisdom of the Vedas revealed to us by the wisest people that ever lived on this planet. So today we're on the 7th canto of the Bhagavatam, 7th canto, chapter 2. And in the previous episode, we talked about Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. These are the two main characters we're going to be discussing. So it all began back in the spiritual world, Vaikuntha. Vaikuntha is known to be that place that in some religions is called heaven, but the Vedas have a very different concept of what that heaven is. It's not some place where God is sitting on a cloud, in the sky, or on a throne, or with angels and harps. The Vaikuntha is light. It's called the Brahma Jyoti, the light, the divine light. And within that Brahma Jyoti are many spiritual planets. Why do I say spiritual planets compared to material planets? Because this entire spiritual world is made of pure energy. There are no physical objects, and yet there are forms that are made of spirit. Okay, so you will see, just as you see here, but there will be nothing that is made of dense matter. In other words, nothing that can become old, nothing that can become diseased, nothing that can die. That is the nature of the spiritual world. Everything is in its eternal, blissful form. There are various planets called Vaikuntha, in which there are various incarnations of the divine, some of which have appeared here on this earth, and we call them avatars. And the highest of those is Goloka, the planet of Krishna, where you get to experience God in the most intimate form, in the most beloved form, in the most endearing and charming and beautiful form, therefore the most attractive. So that's Vaikuntha. Now, we're going to go from there and tell you a little something that I've talked about last time, but I'm just going to summarize it again this time in case you're coming in new. There were the doorkeepers of Vaikuntha known as Jai and Vijay. And 4 Kumars, the sons of Brahma, came to visit. They came to visit Vishnu, who is known to be the supreme being, the supreme Godhead, the supreme personality of Godhead, whichever way you want to say it. And Vishnu, at some point, so I think I should go back one step again here, and let's just explain it a little. The 2 doorkeepers that you saw, Jai and Vijay, they were cursed because they offended these 4 young boys who were actually sages, and they didn't realize that. So the 2 doorkeepers were cursed to come and take birth in the material world because they'd been rude, they'd been arrogant, they'd been, they were doing their duty, but they'd not been nice about it. So the sages had taken great offense, cursed them. Vishnu had intervened, and as a result of that, the compromise that was arrived at was these 2 gatekeepers of Vaikuntha would now take birth in the material world again. Well, not again, but they would take birth here. In 3 different lifetimes, they would appear as 3 different Rakshasas, or very evil demonic beings. And they would create great havoc on the earth, and then Vishnu would incarnate, the supreme being, God would incarnate, and battle with them as part of his Leela, as part of his pastimes, and ultimately annihilate them. So he wanted someone he could spar with, and was one of his own people that was the best. So now we have Jai and Vijay coming into the world, and they come, this particular time we're talking about is where they come as Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. I will show you the spelling so you get clear with that. But in other lifetimes, they came as Ravan and Kumbhakarna during the time of Ram. And recently we had Diwali, in which we have the killing of Ram is being celebrated, and the return of Ram back to his capital, Ayodhya. And later on, they appeared during the time of Krishna as Shishupal and Dantavakra. So let's begin with that first incarnation of Jai and Vijay. And they appeared as Hiranyaksha, and Vishnu appeared as a boar to do battle with him. Hiranyaksha was trying to take the earth out of its orbit, creating great havoc, as he enjoyed doing, and Vishnu came to stop him from doing that. his brother, Hiranyaksha, so Vishnu ended up killing Hiranyaksha. Hiranyaksha's brother was Hiranyakashipu, who had a son Prahlad, and we will talk about Prahlad next time. But this far, just know that that was his brother, Hiranyakashipu. All right, so today we're going to be discussing about Hiranyakashipu. So let's get back to the beginning. Vishnu, in the form of a boar, killed the demon Hiranyaksha, who was causing the earth to go out of its orbit. After Hiranyaksha, the first one, right, the one who fought with the boar, after he was killed, his brother Hiranyakashipu, the one I showed you with his son Prahlad, and I told you we'll talk about that later. Hiranyakashipu is the one we're going to discuss now. He was filled with rage, his terrible teeth, his fierce glance and frowning eyebrows, his eyes blazing with anger. He told the other asuras, the other demoniac characters that he surrounded himself with, he said to them, "My insignificant enemies, the devas, demigods, have united and killed my dear brother Hiranyaksha, along with the supreme being Vishnu, who used to be equal to the demigods and the demons, the devas and the asuras. But this time he has taken the side of the devas, the demigods, in the form of a boar to amuse them and help them kill my brother. I shall therefore sever Vishnu's head from his body by my trident and thus please my brother, who was so fond of sucking blood. Thus shall I be peaceful." You know, vengeance is one of those things that a lot of people feel when they're angry. They want revenge. They want to see the other person suffer. And this doesn't take a really horrible, mean, demonic person to think like that. Many of us, most of us, I dare say, when somebody's really hurt us badly, we want to see them suffer. Our whole judicial system is based on this. Someone hurt or killed or stole from us, and we want to see them suffer. So it's a very natural response, although a very unevolved one, because it's all about trying to get back at the other person. But when you realize that there is no need to do that, neither for us nor even for the judicial system, there is a system set up by the Supreme, by the Divine, by God, that takes care of that. It's called karma. And so whether we punish people or we don't, whether we have retribution, whether we have, revenge, they will get what's coming to them. You need to be certain about that. And how do you know? How do I know? Well, you can look at it all around you. There's people who are born into very opulent and beautiful homes with lovely bodies. There's others who are born in very poor circumstances or with very poor health and with all kinds of challenges. That's all about karma. You may think it's all chance, and if you believe the universe is all chance, then, well, that's up to you. But I don't think anything happens by chance. The technology we're using to talk to each other here is not by chance. Someone put it together. Everything that I'm wearing or that I have was put together by somebody. None of it happened by chance. Every cell, every particle of DNA was perfectly and beautifully engineered. It was not some chance biochemical combination of matter or whatever else people might want to say. It was not the product of a big bang or an accident. No, nothing intelligent, nothing organized comes out of chaos or chance events. Nothing. Show me. I challenge anyone. And if we start with that assumption that there is an order in the universe and an order and a design that is perfectly put together, then it works. And it works always, and it works for everyone. So karma applies to everybody. And no one gets away. So retribution only eats us up. Only the desire for revenge eats us up. And very often we end up doing the very things that were done to us. thereby becoming implicated in further karma. Because if I kill someone who has killed my loved one, now I'm equally involved in killing. The law of the land even, will not excuse me because I killed someone who had killed someone who was dear to me. No. Even the law of the land would not excuse that. So revenge doesn't work. Revenge eats us up. Revenge destroys us. Anger, hatred destroy us. We see this all the time. We see this happening at a race level. We see it happening at a religious level. We see it happening at an individual level and a family level and a social level. We see it everywhere. Now, come back to our story. So, so now he's threatening very clearly that he's going to kill Vishnu. Vishnu, who is the maintainer of the universe, Vishnu, who is the source of the universe, Vishnu, who is the highest being in the universe, he's going to kill him. He gives the reasoning here. He says, when the root of a tree is cut and the tree falls down, its branches and twigs automatically dry up. Similarly, when I have killed Vishnu, the demigods for whom Vishnu is the life and soul will lose the source of their life and wither away. When I am engaged in killing Vishnu, I want all of you, the asuras, the demons, to go down to earth, which is flourishing due to dharmic culture and government. So the dharma of the Vedas, the culture of the Vedas, was propagated all over the earth. People were living by the Vedic principles. You will find that in almost every culture of the world, from South America to Europe to all the way to Japan, that the Vedic culture had its influence everywhere. That their gods, their practices, their languages derived from this original Vedic culture. It's even been shown now that people from that which is now called India and Pakistan and Afghanistan, these areas around there, their DNA actually spread out across the world. It's not what was being said earlier, that it was people from Africa. The Africans came over to India, and from India they went over to every other part of the world. So that's why the Vedic culture is found everywhere, because it was everywhere. Evidence for that is coming out every single day. So let's come back here again. When I am engaged in killing Vishnu, go down to earth, which is flourishing due to dharmic culture and government, these people on earth engage in austerity, sacrifice, Vedic study, regulative vows, and charity. Destroy all the people thus engaged. Of course, we're not talking about recent times, because that's not the case, neither in India nor in most parts of the world. But it was the case thousands of years ago. Set fire to their homes and places of worship, and cut from the roots the trees which are the source of life. And by the way, many who invaded India during the last 1,000 years did exactly this. They were as vicious and as cruel and as devastating in their treatment of people in India as what is being described here. Unfortunately, the conquerors have been glorified, and even till today, people are just starting to wake up to the fact that what happened to them has been totally wrongly represented in the books of history that we are taught as kids in India. So he says to them, go and do this, set fire to their homes and places of worship, cut from the roots the trees which are the source of life. Vishnu is the personified reservoir of Dharma. He is the shelter of the devas, the demigods, and the people in general. When the priests, the Brahmins, are killed, no one will be there to perform the yagyas, and the demigods will automatically die. So this is his thinking. So therefore the asuras, the demonic entities, went to earth and set fire to cities, villages, pasturing grounds, gardens, agricultural fields, and natural forests. They burned the hermitages of the saintly persons, the important mines that produced valuable metals. They also burned the government capitals. They destroyed bridges, forts, and even burned the homes of ordinary citizens. Everyone was disturbed by these disasters. And this was worse than, the times of Hitler. This was worse than the times of what we're seeing right now in the wars that we're seeing all over the world. Now, although Hiranyakashipu was extremely angry, he was also a great politician. He knew how to act according to the time and the situation. So when he came to be with his family and explained to them what had happened and how his brother had been killed by Vishnu, with sweet words he began to pacify his family members. He praised his brother as a great hero who died a glorious and desirable death. He even enlightened them with words of wisdom. He said, "In a restaurant or eating place, many travelers are brought together, and after their meal they continue to their respective destinations. Similarly, living entities join together in a family and later are separated, go to their respective destinations." So he's comparing us coming together as family members in this world, or in whatever other relationship, friends, lovers, whatever it might be, and being then just like travelers coming together at a restaurant or an inn or a hotel, and then going our respective destinations after a short time together. The soul, the living entity, has no death, for he is eternal. See, he has all the wisdom, he has all the knowledge. But keep in mind that his role in that particular time was to play the part of a demonic person, of a person who is against dharma, who wants to kill and destroy everything that is good. Shakespeare said it beautifully when he said, "All the world's a stage and all the men and women merely actors. They have their entrances and their exits." So it's the same thing. He's playing a role, and Vishnu has come and he too will play a role. When we realize that we too are here playing a role, playing a part. You've come here to play the part of a woman or a man. You've come here to play the part of someone who is an American or an Indian or an African. These are all roles we play. None of it is real. In this body, you might be Christian. In another body, you might be a Muslim. When you're in your Muslim body, you'll hate the Christians. When you're in your Christian body, you'll hate the Muslims. But which one are you? In different lifetimes, you've been different things. And when you realize that, you know that none of this matters. Your identity, your religion, your nationality, your race, your color, your gender, none of it matters. Listen very carefully. None of it matters. You are a spiritual being, a soul. These are outfits, dresses you wear, just as you wear a new set of clothes and you give up an old set of clothes. You take on a new body and give up an old body. That's it. It's as simple as that. That's how the Bhagavad Gita explains it. There's no, big mystery to life once you understand that. Because that death is the only thing that's guaranteed to us. For one who is born, it is certain he will die. And for one who has died, it is certain he will be born again. That's the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita. Starts there. For the soul, there is neither birth nor death, nor having once been does it ever cease to be. Never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings, nor in the future shall any of us cease to be. These are the statements of the Bhagavad Gita. In chapter 2, you will find all of that. If you haven't read it, please do. So then, this asura, this demonic person, is so wise, and he's giving the knowledge here. He says the soul, the living entity, the real self, the real you and me, has no death, for he is eternal. He is free to go anywhere in the material or spiritual worlds. He is fully aware, but because of being misled and by misuse of his slight independence, note these two terms, he is obliged to accept a physical body and subject it to material happiness and distress. Why? Let's go back. Because of being misled. Who is he being misled by? Everybody. We take birth, and right from the moment of our birth, we're being misled. You're being told you're a girl, someone else is being told they're a boy. We're being told that you're from this nationality and this race. You're told that this is how you need to behave, this is what you need to do. And this is who you are, and this is how you need to worship, and this is how you need to live. And these are the rules and conduct of society. And I'm not saying that we don't need to have rules and conduct in society. Of course we do. But we're made to identify with these things. You're American, you're Indian, you're this, you're that. That's the problem. The problem is not that we have codes of conduct. Of course we need to have them. But we need to know the true self, and that no one teaches us. So in the absence of that knowledge of the true self, we become identified with the false self, the false ego, the false identity. And now it's very hard to snap out of it. Now I tell you that you're not the body, you're like, oh, well, what are you talking about? It doesn't make any sense. So he goes on. He is obliged to accept a physical body. The soul is obliged to accept a physical body because he has exercised his independence. See, we're always exercising our independence, whether you choose to eat a certain kind of food or another, whether you choose to be with a certain person or another, whether you choose to live a certain way or another way. We're always exercising our free will. But that free will is very slight, is very small. You can't choose whether to breathe or not to breathe. You can't choose whether your heart will beat or not beat. That you cannot choose. That is not possible. You have slight independence. And because of that slight independence and because of that being misused, you're then obliged to accept a physical body and are subjected to material happiness and distress. Therefore, he says, no one should lament the passing of the soul from the body. The living entity accepting the body and mind to be the self considers some people to be his kinsmen and others to be outsiders. The accumulation of such concocted material ideas is the cause of suffering and so-called happiness in the world. The conditioned soul thus situated must take birth in different species and work in different types of consciousness, thus creating new bodies. This continued material life is called samsara. There is a history about a conversation between Yamaraj and the friends of a dead person. So now he's going to narrate a story or a history about a conversation between Yamaraj. Yamaraj is known to be the demigod in charge of death. So Yamaraj is having a conversation with the friends of a dead person. So there was once a celebrated king named Suyagya. He was killed in battle, and his kinsmen sat around the dead body lamenting. His golden, bejeweled armor was smashed. His ornaments and garlands had fallen from their place. His hair was scattered and his eyes were lusterless. The slain king lay on the battlefield, his entire body smeared with blood, his heart pierced by the arrows of the enemy. When he died, he had wanted to show his prowess, and thus he had bitten his lips, and his teeth remained in that position. His beautiful lotus-like face was now black and covered with dust from the battlefield. His arms, with his sword and other weapons, were cut and broken. When his queens saw him, they began crying, lamenting, and pounding their breasts. "O king, O hero, you were a very grateful husband and the most sincere friend to all of us. How shall we exist without you? Wherever you are going, please direct us there so we may go along with you." So they wanted to leave their bodies and go wherever their husband had gone. When the body was to be burned, the queens would not allow it to be taken away. They kept him on their laps, In the meantime, the sun set. Yamaraj, hearing their loud cries, came down to earth, assuming the body of a young boy. So Yamaraj now comes as a young boy. And he says to these queens, he says, how amazing it is. These persons have full experience that hundreds and thousands of living entities have taken birth and died. Thus they should understand that they are apt to die, yet still they are bewildered. The conditioned soul comes from an unknown place and returns after death to that same unknown place. There is no exception to this rule, which is conducted by material nature. Knowing this, why do they uselessly lament? So keep in mind here, he doesn't say that they come from God and go back to God. They come from an unknown place, which we don't know where we came from. We don't know where we're going after we leave here. But we do know we're here for now, and that's just for a little while. If we are eternal beings and we've been around millions of years, then this life of 100 years even is a blip. It's a moment. It's a second in time. Yamaraj continues, although I am a child, you notice he's come as a little boy, although I am a child and have been abandoned by my father and mother, I am weak, but I have not been killed or eaten by ferocious animals. Thus I have a firm belief that the Supreme Godhead who gave me protection even in the womb of my mother will protect me everywhere. So he's trying to get across certain understandings to these women, so they may understand through his example. He addressed the women. Sometimes one loses his money on a public street where everyone can see it. Yet no one sees it, and the man who lost it gets it back. Right? Some of us have had that happen. Like you've left something precious behind, and no one saw it. Like a veil came over, and nobody saw it, and we got our thing back. But on the other hand, even money maintained very securely at home can be stolen or lost. If the Supreme Lord gives one protection, even though one has no protector and is in the jungle, one remains alive. Whereas a person who is well protected at home by relatives and others sometimes dies, no one being able to protect him. There's a saying, Rakhe Krishna mare Krishna rakhe ke. So if God protects one, then no one can kill you. And if God doesn't, then no one can protect you. Every conditioned soul receives a different type of body according to his karma. And when the karma is finished, the body is finished. So this is really the product of our karma. And what we're doing in this life now is creating the next body through our karma, through our actions now. Through our actions, you are creating your next body. Your body presently was the result of your previous actions. Although the soul has taken many bodies, he is not bound by any of them, for he is completely different from the body. Just as a householder, although different from the identity of his house, thinks his house to be identical with him, so the conditioned soul, due to ignorance, accepts the body to be himself, although the body is actually different from the soul. This body is transformed in course of time and ultimately vanquished. The soul has nothing to do with the creation and dissolution of the body. Like you could ask the question, why is it that we get old? Why do we get sick? And why do we die? All of that is to remind us that we're not the body. All of it is to remind us that this is temporary and that there are other more important things that we should be focusing our attention on, such as understanding who you really are, such as discovering the true nature of life and of the soul, your true identity. That's the purpose of human life. And then from there to understand who created all of this, what is God, and what is my relationship with God. He continues, the living entity, although encaged within the material body, is always separate from it. Consider this, you're encaged. No, not engaged, encaged. You're in a cage, which is the body. And sometimes we feel trapped. We feel trapped in circumstances in our life. We feel trapped In a relationship, we may feel trapped in so many things, but the real entrapment is this. We are encaged within this material body, although we are always separate from it. Then he says to them, "O lamenters, you are all fools. The person for whom you lament is still lying before you and has not gone anywhere. Then what is the cause of your lamentation? Previously he heard you and replied to you, but now, not finding him, you are lamenting. This is contradictory behavior, for you have never actually seen the person within the body who heard you and replied. There is no need for your lamentation, for the body you have always seen is lying here." You get what he's saying? The soul which you haven't seen, he's saying, you never saw it. How can you miss it? That which you never saw, that which you never knew, that which you never encountered, how can you miss it? The body is right here. And yet you're crying, yet you're grieving. The wise, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, the wise lament neither for the living nor the dead. Coming back to Yamaraj, as long as the soul is covered by the subtle body, there is the gross body, and then there is the subtle body consisting of the mind, intelligence, and ego. Man, buddhi, ahankar. Right? The subtle body. So there's the gross body, the physical body, and there's the subtle body, mind, intelligence, and ego. This subtle body goes with the soul when it leaves the physical body. So that's the context. Now, as long as the soul is covered by the subtle body consisting of mind, intelligence, and false ego, it is bound to the results of the person's karmic activities. Because of this covering, the soul is connected with the material energy and must accordingly suffer material conditions and reversals continuously, life after life. It is useless to talk about so-called happiness and distress as if they were factual. When a person begins to think himself extremely important, or dreams at night and sees a beautiful woman enjoying with him, these are merely false dreams. Similarly, the happiness and distress caused by the material senses should be understood to be meaningless. Now, I know it's not easy to understand or live from this place, but one must hear the guidance that is being given here. One must consider these things so that you can set the bar a little higher, so that you can consider a different way of living. To rise beyond so-called happiness and distress, and to stop taking either of them, either of these imposters, as if they were factual. Neither the good nor the bad are important. If you only value the good things that are going to happen to you, you only want positive things to happen to you, well then, whenever you have one end of the spectrum, the other end of the spectrum will be devastating. If you are a positive person, then when bad things happen to you, you're not prepared for it. You don't know how to deal with it. But if you are equanimous, you are equal to both positive and negative, good and bad, then you've been practicing something that is far more important than being positive. I know for the longest time I got sucked into that idea too. You've got to be positive. It's nonsensical because positive gives rise to negative. Negative gives rise to positive. You will keep swinging between these pendulums. When you're trying to be too positive, negative things will happen, then you'll swing back to being depressed. That's why we've got a whole culture of depression now. But the Vedic culture says, don't celebrate positivity, don't celebrate happiness, don't celebrate any of it. Recognize that none of it is true. Don't aim for being positive, don't aim for being happy, don't aim for being good, don't aim for being bad, don't aim for being right, don't aim for being any of that. None of the dualities. Stay away from the duality of positive or negative and come to the center, the place of peace. You have positive, you have negative, and then in the middle you have zero. That zero is the most important contribution of the Vedic culture. The place of nothingness. Recognize that you are nothing that nothing matters and that nothing is the opening, the doorway to everything, to all knowledge, to all wisdom. See, when you think you know stuff, you won't learn. But when you think you don't know, when you realize that you're foolish, then you'll be curious and you will learn. When you realize that you're worthless, you're not good enough, you're nothing, then you will cultivate humility. If you learn how to do this right, you will cultivate humility. If you don't know how to do it right, you'll become depressed. But if you learn how to do it right, it will become the doorway to your spiritual growth. He continues, those who have full knowledge of self-realization know that the soul is eternal, whereas the body is perishable. They are not overwhelmed by lamentation. But persons who lack knowledge of self-realization certainly lament. Therefore, it is difficult to educate a person who is in illusion. What is the illusion? To think that I'm this body. Then he gives another story. He says, there was once a hunter who lured birds with food and captured them after spreading a net. Once he captured a female bird and her mate. Because of affection and being helpless to free her, the mate of that bird began to lament. Alas, how merciless is Providence! My wife, unable to be helped by anyone, is trapped and is lamenting for me. What will Providence gain by taking away this poor bird? What will be the profit? If unkind Providence takes away my wife, who is half my body, why should it not take me also? What is the use of my living with half of my body bereaved by loss of my wife? What shall I gain in this way? The unfortunate baby birds bereft of their mother are waiting in the nest for her to feed them. They are still very small and have not grown their wings. How shall I be able to maintain them? While the male bird lamented, the hunter fired an arrow and killed him. Then the small boy told all the queens, you are all so foolish that you lament, but you do not see your own death. Afflicted by a lack of knowledge, you do not know that even if you lament for your dead husband for hundreds of years, you will never get him back alive. And in the meantime, your lives will be finished. Everyone was struck by the philosophical wisdom of the boy's words. He then disappeared from their vision. On hearing the words of her son, Hiranyakashipu, because that's the one who started this whole narration, Diti, along with her daughter-in-law, forgot her grief over her son's death, Hiranyaksha's death, and engaged her mind and attention in understanding the philosophy of life. Now, this same Hiranyakashipu had great ambitions. The demonic king Hiranyakashipu wanted to be unconquerable and free from old age and dwindling of the body. He wanted to gain all yogic perfections, to be deathless, and to be the only king of the entire universe. He began performing various austerities by standing with his toes on the ground, keeping his arms upward and looking toward the sky. This position was extremely difficult, but he accepted it as a means to gain perfection. After a long period of meditation, from the hair on his head there emanated an effulgent light as brilliant and intolerable as the rays of the sun at the time of dissolution. This fire and its smoke spread throughout the sky, encompassing the upper and lower planets, which all became extremely hot. Because of the power of his severe austerities, all the rivers and oceans were agitated. The surface of the globe with its mountains and islands began trembling. All directions were ablaze. Now, we cannot understand this power, this level of meditation, austerity, power that these yogis would engage in. In today's time, it's almost not unheard of. I mean, there's just no one like that. But there was a time, and we have to give credence to that possibility. The demigods in the heavenly planets were terrified. They went to Brahma and requested him to stop these disturbances that were meant to destroy everything. Hiranyakashipu's intention was that by austerity, mystic power, and trance, for many, many births, he would obtain the position of Brahma. He wanted to become the most important person in the universe, in the entire material world. If that were to happen, Vedic culture, opulence, and good fortune for all living beings would come to an end, and everything would be lost. So the demigods came and appealed to Brahma, and then Brahma, who is known to be the creator of the universe, not God. God doesn't bother with creation, he delegates that out. Brahma then, accompanied by various powerful sages, went to the place where Hiranyakashipu was performing austerities. Hiranyakashipu's body was covered by an anthill and by grass and bamboo sticks. He had been there for such a long time that the ants had devoured his skin, fat, flesh, and blood. He resembled a cloud covered by the sun. But his energy was heating all the world by his austerities. Struck with wonder, Brahma began to smile and addressed him as follows. Just to throw in a couple of pictures for you. Brahma said, "O son of Kashyap Muni, please get up, please get up. All good fortune to you. You are now perfect in the performance of your austerities, and therefore I may give you a benediction. You may now ask from me whatever you desire, and I shall try to fulfill your wish. I have been very astonished to see your endurance. In spite of being eaten and bitten by all kinds of worms and ants, you are keeping your life air circulating within your bones. Certainly, this is wonderful." Now, we're not talking about air that we breathe. We're talking about life air, your energy, your prana. Even very saintly persons could not perform such severe austerities, nor will anyone in the future be able to do so. How can anyone sustain his life without even drinking water for 100 celestial years? With your great determination and austerity, you have done what was impossible even for great saintly persons, and thus I have certainly been conquered by you. I am now prepared to give you all benedictions according to your desire. I belong to the celestial world of demigods who do not die like human beings. Therefore, although you are subject to death, your audience with me will not go in vain. Brahma, the original being of the universe, who is extremely powerful, sprinkled transcendental, infallible, spiritual water upon Hiranyakashipu's body, which had been eaten away by ants and moths. Hiranyakashipu arose, endowed with a full body and limbs so strong that they could bear the striking of a thunderbolt. With physical strength and bodily luster resembling molten gold, he emerged from the anthill a completely young man, just as fire springs from wood. Hiranyakashipu was extremely pleased. He bowed down before Brahma and offered him respectful prayers to the creator of this universe. Hiranyakashipu said, "O my Lord, O best of the givers of benediction, if you will kindly grant me the benediction I desire, please let me not meet death from any of the living entities created by you." Now watch what he's going to ask for. He wants to become deathless. Now he knows he can't really ask that, but he's going to try and get as close to that as possible, that no one can kill him. He wants to avoid death under all circumstances. So he's got a whole series of things worked out that will, for all practical purposes, make it such that no one can kill him and he cannot die. So he says, "If you will grant me the benediction I desire, please let me not meet death from any of the living entities created by you." That means all humans, all animals, whatever. "Grant me that I not die within any residence or outside any residence." Where is that? What does that leave then? "During the daytime or at night." Okay. "Nor on the ground or in the sky. Grant me that my death not be brought about by any being other than those created by you." So not those created, so not that I not be killed by any being created by you and any being not created by you. "Nor by any weapon, nor by any human being or animal. Grant me that I not meet death from any entity, living or non-living. Grant me further that I shall not be killed by any demigod or demon or by any great snake from the lower planets. Since no one can kill you in battlefield, you have no competitor. Therefore grant me the benediction that I too may have no rival. Give me sole lordship over all living entities and presiding deities, and give me all the glories obtained by that position. Furthermore, give me all the mystic powers attained by long austerities in the practice of yoga, for those cannot be lost at any time. Brahma had no choice at this point. He'd already given his word that he would give him whatever he wanted. He said, O Hiranyakashipu, these benedictions for which you have asked are difficult to obtain for almost anyone. Now, nonetheless, O my son, I shall grant them to you, although they are generally not available. Then Brahma departed. Hiranyakashipu, having thus become blessed by Brahma and having acquired a lustrous golden body, continued to remember the death of his brother, and therefore he continued to be angry and envious of Vishnu. He went on to conquer all the planets in the universes, upper, middle, and lower, and thus he brought everyone under his power, influence, and control. What happened next, we'll find out in the next episode. For now, let's go over to our audience and see what you've been thinking. If you've got any questions, let's see what you've got. Okay. And if any of you have any questions, either now or at any other time later, feel free to add them to the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Silly writes here in the chat, this gives answer to all is fair in love and war. Could there be a link of the body, mind, and soul as a function of the primary means of creation, preservation, and destruction? Body, mind. Could there be a link of the body, mind, and soul as a function of the primary creation? Well, I mean, if you're going to take it as metaphorical, sure. But first and foremost, taking your first point, all is fair in love and war. Yeah, absolutely. There's no denying that. I mean, if you look at the Mahabharata, there's in war there was there were many rules, but because the people who they were fighting with had broken all the rules of good behavior and good conduct, then with such people there were no rules. See, when you're with a gentleman or with a civilized person or with someone who is truly, dignified, honest, and so on, then you behave accordingly. But when you're with a thief, when you're with a murderer, when you're with a psychopath, then you have to find other ways of being with them. And if it means that you have to find a way to kill them or destroy them, even if that way is not fair, if you've got a psychopath who's out to kill you and you need to adopt a different means to be able to, you don't play at being polite and being fair and being right. No. Those things apply when you're dealing with someone who is a civilized, caring person. They do not apply when someone is vicious and cruel and nasty. So a lot of times people think that, well, I did only this much harm, but now you're trying to do more harm to me. So, we see that happening now with Israel and Hamas and all of that. And it's karma. Deal with it. You're getting a reaction. That's what's going to happen. People are not going to take it lying down. So when the Mahabharata took place, tens of thousands of people were killed. Actually, hundreds of thousands were killed. But that's how it is. And then, Gandhari is all upset because Oh, you killed all my sons are now killed. No, da, da, da. Upset about that with Krishna. No, your sons started this whole thing. Your sons did. They were cruel and vicious and mean and nasty, and they got what they deserved. So ultimately, that is the way of dharma. As you said, silly, all is fair in love and war. So, you know.
Okay, I found this on the web. For how old is fair?
Sorry. It's very important for us to understand that things are not just black and white. It's not just about being positive. It's not just about doing the right thing. You have to go according to time and circumstance. You have to watch the situation, who you're dealing with, where you are. What is right in one country is not right in another. What is civilized in one place is not civilized in another. As the saying went, when in Rome, do as Romans do. So according to time, place, and circumstance, you have to see what is the situation you're dealing with and then act accordingly. I can elaborate on that. Yeah. I mean, in some countries, a certain kind of dress is okay. You can be in America and you wear a short skirt or a bikini, no big deal. Do that in an Arab country and they'll probably kill you for it. Right? So it all depends on where you are. All right, any more questions? This was a tough one because this really hammered away at our illusions around death. In the next episode, we're going to be talking about Hiranyakashipu's son, Prahlad, who was a very, very highly evolved being. He was a great lover of Vishnu, and Vishnu was Hiranyakashipu's enemy. Now imagine your son considers your enemy to be the most important person in the world. What happens next? We'll find out. But just give it a moment here. If there's any more questions. I truly agree with you, Silly. There is tremendous pain with all these wars that are going on, whether it's in Ukraine or whether it's in Israel and Gaza. It is very painful to see human beings being so used as pawns and being killed. It definitely saddens my heart that we've come to this. And at the same time, I also understand that this is what the world is. That people want revenge. People want retribution. That's what we started off talking about. Is it right? No. Should it happen? No. Is war good? No. Never. Under all circumstances, never. And yet, when you are being attacked by someone, there's often no choice left. You have to then be able to protect your people, your loved ones, your country. You've got to do what you've got to do to take care of yourself. So both things exist at the same time. While on one hand, war and conflict are the worst things that can ever happen. At the same time, there are moments and situations in which they become inevitable. One must try in every way to find peace. If you look at the Battle of Mahabharata when Krishna was here, he did everything to try to create resolution, to try to create peace. But when that was not possible, then war became inevitable. And at that time, the consequences were horrific. As I said, hundreds of thousands of people died. That's what happens. Once the war begins, then the consequences are whatever they will be. And even then, if there is a way to resolve it, one should always try. But it is a sad and tragic story, and this has been going on. You may think it's happening now, but it's been going on ever since time began. This conflict, these wars. It's because we haven't learned to be at peace with ourselves. We are at war with ourselves. We are at war within ourselves. We are at war within our families. We are at war as a society. And we are at war amongst nations. The deepest war is the one inside here. And if you want peace in the world, begin with this battle. Win this battle here peacefully. Win the battle of your mind, which judges you, criticizes you, and tries to break you down at every moment and every step. If you can win that battle, you will have won the greatest battle of all. And you will have done it non-violently. You will have done it by being able to put a stop to the mind and its harassment and its bullying and its putting you down and trying to destroy and devastate you. Because this is happening to every single human being, and no one teaches anyone how to stop it. So if anyone needs help with that, do let me know. I'm here for you. And meanwhile, I'll see you in the next video. Take care. The next episode next week. Hare Krishna. Jai Shri Krishna.